Anthony Smith was talking about Jan Błachowicz and saying, I can't believe that Jan is the number one contender going to go fight for a championship next. Now, if I'm misquoting Lionheart, I apologize in advance, but that was my interpretation. And I read it, I didn't hear it. You know how you can get lost in context a little bit, but I still want to tackle the topic. Because I don't believe that that's been said. I don't believe that that is the case. Now, let me just lay this out for you. Big fight over the weekend. Number 3 in the world in Rakic. Number 1 in the world, Blachowicz. Main event. No other fight in the light heavyweight division that is booked is impressive by the numbers of the rankings as that one. So we are very right and wise to look in that direction. Now, we do know many times in this sport, it's not a semifinal. You go have this fight, and perhaps the number one contender comes from it. But perhaps the victor does not, right? It's not a semifinal. I'm not convinced that Jan, even though he was ranked number 1, draws right in. And I know what you're thinking. The number 1 contender should go fight for the belt. I hear you, but what do you tell me when I remind you that Colby Covington's the number 1 contender? Or what do you say to me when I remind you that Robert Whittaker is the number 1 contender? And you say, well, he's a former champion. Okay, but Colby was the interim champion. And Whittaker was the undisputed champion. Like, it's the same situation. You need some parity. I do think if Rakic would have won, regardless of what happens in Glover's fight with Prochazka, I think Rakic would have been the number 1 contender. And I'm just bringing this up. Perhaps it is Blachowicz, but I don't know of a time in history that somebody became a number 1 contender off of an injury. It may have happened, but I don't know of one, not to mention an injury that won you a fight in a fight that you were losing. I don't know if that's relevant. I really don't. I'm just bringing up the conversation with you that I'm not sure that's done, and I think Anthony would like that door open just for a motivation factor. Anthony's got a big fight coming up with Ankalaev. Everybody knows who Anthony is. Very few people could spot an Ankalaev, in all fairness. Ankalaev's something and oh. I mean, it's like 12-0 and a ton of finishes and a great big sumbitch. And he's ranked number 9 in the world, and what I'm citing for you was 3 months ago, he could have moved up. I mean, it's a really hard match. And I think Anthony would like to keep the motivation open of, hey, wait a minute, if you already established a number 1 contender and we already know where the champion is, what am I fighting this guy for? I think Anthony makes a very fair point. And I personally am giving a real good look to that match. But I also think it does matter what happens and who the champion is. Look, nobody's clamoring to see a Glover-Jan rematch. Sometimes you just got to do them. But you could also sidestep it considering they just fought 8 months ago, right? I mean, it's one of those things. Like, there's matches within the integrity of the sport that you have to make, but if you've already made them, an argument doesn't really hold up, so you don't have to remake. You don't have to remake them. You can. And what happens if Prochazka beats Glover? We just go, oh, Glover, you're 41, you're done. We sweep him to the side. I mean, how many times are we going to sweep Glover to the side? We swept him to the side the night that he won the championship, and he was a 3-1 underdog. So if he loses the belt, he doesn't get an immediate rematch. I mean, is that the... Yeah, probably. That's probably exactly right, the way I just said it. But if Prochazka was to get the jump on him, that would totally open the door, in my opinion, for both y'all and Anthony Smith or Ankalaev, whoever wins. What I'm suggesting is you would have fresh parity, which I think is very important. I think that's the first place that you're going to turn, because generally that's more interesting. In the cases where you have rematches, the first match was a wild success. Generally. I'm making real general statements here. I'm just speaking to the idea of Lionheart saying that he heard that Blachowicz is officially the number 1 contender. He was ranked number 1 going into that. So that hasn't changed. Glover Teixeira was sweet enough to say whoever wins this, should I still be in power, I will give the opportunity. That was very nice. But it's not official. And we didn't know it was going to end on an injury. And we didn't know the winner was going to be the guy that was losing the fight, right? I mean, there's a lot of discussion there. And I don't know that Blachowicz has even done as much as Anthony. Anthony speaking up and saying, I resist this idea, is more interesting. And Anthony's not just serving himself, he's helping Ankalaev out here too. Wouldn't kill Ankalaev to jump in and help steal some of this thunder. I would not expect him to do that. It's not anything he's done in his past, but it wouldn't be the worst idea I've heard. And I don't really know of a time in a sport that we just anoint, so, well, you did this match, and therefore, I don't really know of a time that we do that. We bring a few good options together that all have a meaningful argument. We let them battle it out. Everything is a fight, including within the media, including within getting the mandate of the masses. Everything is a competition. I think the number one contender at 205 is still being competed for.